What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch in the Rube, our Wednesday show, presented by our friends at Front 43 Neighborhood Pub in Cask & Company Kitchen and Bar. That's just north of Frandor, near the East Lansing border on East Saginaw. The original Couch in the Rube sponsor, an unbelievable place for any occasion. It is like my go-to recommendation when people ask me, where should I take somebody? They're in town, we're in town for the game, whatever. Give them a good vibe, give them a good experience, give them a great meal. Cask & Company in Front 43, and the reservation system, which I've always really liked there, caskandcompany.com. You want a booth, you want to be on one side or the other, on the Cask & Company side or the Front 43 side, the restaurant side or the pub side, although the bar and TV setup on the Cask & Company side is awesome too. You can do that there at caskandcompany.com. Jason, how you doing, brother? Riding right up into my rectum, and it was painful.
Back to the white elephant in the room. They don't want to deal with the white elephant in the room.
Hey, man. What's going on?
I'm good.
What's up?
You okay?
Yeah. Last day of July. It's fantastic.
It's not the last day of July.
It's not?
Tomorrow.
Well, I mean, last for us, our show.
Okay.
We're not doing another show in July.
Right.
So it means it's the last day in July for me.
So we made it through July. We
Thank
took
God.
2 weeks off, and then we've done several
Maybe
really
we should
crappy
just
shows.
do 3 next year. Just come back for one nice clean week.
Yeah.
Get it all out of the way.
Sounds
Yeah.
good. Sounds good.
Yeah, man.
Well, there's some stuff, though. July may be here, and it may be the nothing month in sports to some degree, but MSU football and college football practice has started.
Yeah.
So
Football's back.
there's that, and now we just have to wait a month for the actual games.
Oh.
And we're also going to talk to Scott Dochterman from The Athletic in a little bit, and about the Big Ten and college football in general. And I always enjoy talking to Scott, and I always enjoy Jason's enthusiasm for our conversations when I suggest Scott as a guest.
I like Scott Doc.
Yeah.
He's passionate. I follow him on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Does the podcast. He talks about how great Iowa's offense is going to be this year, you know?
Well, he's a national writer now, reluctantly, for The Athletic. But he's very well-informed, well-sourced, always a good conversation. So we'll do that in a minute here. And we're likely going to have Harry Gagnon on later to talk some betting and some games and maybe some over-unders and things of that nature. We're 80% on Harry. So we'll have something if he's not
We're
there.
100%. I just got confirmation. He just said, could we start earlier possibly? So, after Scott Doc, commercial break, we go right to Harry.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Confirmed.
All right. So a few takeaways from the opening of Michigan State football camp. Again, we don't see a lot in actual practice. We see 6 periods, and it's mostly individual drills. And so it's the action on the field is not what I'm here to talk about, the takeaways, or not what the takeaways are. But Aidan Chiles spent some time talking with reporters after the first practice on Tuesday. And some things stood out. And I wrote a column about this. And I think these are important things, and it's important to remember in his journey. And he's still 19, which is remarkable because he's a junior this year and a second-year starter. But you can see in him the maturity and the growth as a quarterback off the field. The bravado has been toned down. The idea that he's going to be the best quarterback, the take the over stuff, all the stuff he said last year when he didn't really know what he was getting into. All he knew is he had loads of talent, and he thought the world was at his feet, and he was going to take it by storm. And what happens when you go through a year like last year is you learn that's not really how it works, and it rarely works that way for quarterbacks and young quarterbacks. I thought he sounded humbled. You'd see some of the stuff creep up, he's very much looking forward to the Boston College game because of the way that ended and the way the mistakes he made there. And he almost went too far in saying that, you want to be careful you don't piss off the opponent in July and create bulletin board material you don't need to.
Take the over.
Yeah, but for the most part, he was, I think he was, he sounded like a guy who's been through it a little bit and stuff you have to go through. And it's why, we were talking about the Michigan over-unders the other day with Bryce Underwood starting at quarterback.
I'm not talking about Michigan.
That's just a lot to put on. He might be God's gift to the position. He might be Peyton Manning and Michael Vick and John Elway wrapped up into one,
Damn, hell yeah, let's go.
that would be incredible for Bryce Underwood. But I'm just saying I would still be reluctant to say he's not going to make some really costly mistakes in year one. That's just the way quarterback play works. Maybe he'll be the rare, efficient quarterback, and once in a while you see a guy or they build an offense that's so smart and tailored around that person they don't make a ton of mistakes. But what we saw with Aidan Chiles was a guy who did. But he had a load of talent. And so the question now with him is just basically, does this understanding and maturity and commitment to film study he talked about just over and over and just too many times watching the Boston College and the Michigan games last year and the mistakes he made and how everything that fans suffered through, he suffered through too. Like he saw the same games and sometimes he'd play really well and the other times he'd say, what are you doing? Like the same thought you had, the same curse you had at the TV, the same time you threw the remote, he was thinking the same thing. And I think John Boyer, the quarterback's coach now, is helpful with that. But the question won't be whether he understands it as he sees it on film. The question will be in real time, because this is what they've worked on. Does he recognize it pre-snap? Does he recognize it as the play develops quickly? And can he react to it? And, he's a guy who's always going to be able to play off schedule. Can he be really good on schedule? And can he make the right decisions when things break down? And can the line around him and I think his receivers are going to be really good, but can the line around him be good enough to help him take that next step? And those are the things that we won't know until, we'll know to some degree right away against Western Michigan. We'll get a better feel as the season goes along, as they play Boston College, and then, on the road at USC and so on and so forth. But I thought that was interesting. Just he is a, as every 18 and 19-year-old, there is maturation at that age. And he's doing everything in the public eye, and you could see it. How it translates to the field, I don't know. But I think it's a positive for Michigan State that he doesn't sound like the same person that he was a year ago in this situation.
I can't stop watching your video from yesterday. And so it begins. And then, there's got two guys running a route, an out route. What are you just holding up your phone and grabbing some video, crushing some tape? Just plays over and over. I like it.
The other thing I thought was interesting. Yeah, it's good videography, don't you think?
I thought it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, I put together
So it begins.
2-minute highlight video too that went up. Yeah,
all right. Well,
doing my work.
I gotta scroll. Your feed is wild.
Yeah.
Your Twitter feed's something else.
It goes all over the place, doesn't it?
It really is crazy.
I have a feeling, I have a thought, and I have to.
It's not even that. You're just reposting everybody. And, yeah. Scrolling.
It is what it is. Yeah.
I know you don't like it. But.
So the MSU's backup quarterback is a redshirt freshman, Alicio sorry, I always mispronounce this. Milivojevic. Yeah, I'll get that right eventually. Anyway,
Vichy, we're going to call him? Is that what it is? Yeah. These people need nicknames, some of them, yeah.
But it is interesting. They clearly believe in him enough that they didn't go out and get another quarterback this offseason, a veteran. They thought he could be the backup. He is the backup right now. And you don't want a season to go to, if a guy like Aidan Chiles takes a hit, you don't want that to go, to the season to go to waste. So it's interesting they have that sort of confidence in him. I also found Jonathan Smith's comments about the quarterback position and what they'd like to do interesting moving forward. And I think this is the best thing you can do in the rev share era, is to still be able to develop within. Now the question is, with a guy like Alicio, is he's 2 years behind Aidan Chiles in from a standpoint of eligibility, and if he if Chiles were to play out both years and doesn't have a great year and go to the NFL, is he patient enough to wait? And I think if you think you have a couple years to be the starter, that's still, you pay your backup quarterbacks a decent rate, which backup quarterbacks need to make in college football these days. I think that's still a good way to do it. It'll be interesting to see what they do in terms of, do you go out and try and find a guy? Like Chiles made sense because he previously played with Jonathan Smith. He was at Oregon State, and that was a transfer quarterback they brought in. But if you're trying to develop within, which is what Jonathan Smith says they want to do, and I think it's easier, too, to negotiate rates to, if you can do that more and more, it'll be interesting because you're going to lose guys. Guys don't want to wait. And if guys show a little bit of talent, there is going to be, like, for example, if Chiles were to get injured for a bit this year and Alicio was to come in and play well in a spurt, and then Chiles would be the starter for a year and a half, there would be people offering him a decent amount of money a year ago. So there are going to be challenges with it. But I thought that was interesting, where they are with that and how they plan to handle that long term. And then the other takeaway, and I'll have maybe more after Thursday's availability, Was there a couple other players that talked, including Jalen Thompson, who talked about the depth on defense and how the second unit and third unit guys were much better and much more able to play and much more in line with who the first unit guys are. And my first thought, and I don't think he's realizing as he's saying, is that there is good in that for MSU. You need depth. The depth has been a problem in late in seasons when they get beat up. They're no longer able to, that's part of the reason they slid so badly at the end of last year. But also, it's not good in the fact that you need difference makers. And difference makers should only be on your first unit. The first unit should stand out from the backups to some degree. Eventually you want to be recruiting at a certain level that the backups aren't too far behind everywhere, but you want real difference makers. And I don't know on this defense how many of those guys they have. And that's going to be really, I think, a telling part of this season. The depth will be good if they can be solid in depth, but at some point they need to have difference makers, and maybe they will. And there are guys that have developed or that we don't. But that's I think going to be my point of least confidence in this MSU football team going forward. We're going to talk also about the Central Michigan thing a little bit later after the notice of allegations from the NCAA toward them and Connor Stallions being on the sidelines. And also we'll talk with Harry Gagnon. But first, let's get our friend Scott on the phone and talk some Big Ten football, some college football playoff, and all that good stuff. A reminder, Front 43 and Cask & Company, like we talk all the time about how you can support us is by supporting our sponsors, and you've done a great job with them. And they've done, like, they do really well. They just do. And it's wonderful to see how that place is taken off since Kurt, the GM there, has been in charge. But you are supporting us when you choose these places, and they were the original place to take a chance on us. Cask & Company and Front 43, underrated patio, great modern American and Asian menu. I love like a lot of their sushi rolls and sushi bowls and the Big Island Bowl, the Maui Bowl, great flatbreads, burgers, terrific drink selection as well at Front 43 and Cask & Company. Very pleased now to be joined by reluctant national writer for The Athletic, the one and only Scott Dochterman. Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Graham. How are you today?
I'm well. I think one thing I've discovered in guys like you and Joe Rexroad at The Athletic and even Brendan Quinn to some degree, guys who were really happy and great covering a beat, who've moved into bigger roles, and I can firmly say reluctant national writers. I feel better about your status as a national writer just being able to say reluctant, I guess. That's
I appreciate that. I know I grew up here in Big Ten country and wrote a lot of Big Ten along with Iowa for a couple of decades, and so I appreciate it that I still enjoy the local beats, and sometimes I wish I was still back on one, but by and large I like what I do. But yeah, Joe is a happy guy in Nashville now, and we seem to have a lot of disagreements on different things over the last couple of months, which has been kind of funny.
Well, he's an SEC country, so he's gone down there where the heat and the oppressive heat sort of gets to your brain a little bit, and you make bad decisions. But you wrote about so you were in Vegas and wrote about you wrote some really good pieces out there, and one of the things I just your What We Learned piece from Media Days from the Big Ten and SEC rift, so to speak, and the favorites and everything. I really enjoyed it. It was one of the better primers I've seen at this stage in the college football season. But let's start with let's start with the college football landscape and playoff and sort of this battle between these two power leagues and where you think this will ultimately wind up. And like the idea that like everybody seems, as you wrote, to fall in line in the Big Ten with Tony Petitti's idea of these auto bids, and what that would be for the college football playoff, which is like 4 auto bids for the Big Ten and SEC and 2 for the ACC and Big 12. And my big issue with it, and this is where is just the idea that you can't predetermine what league's going to be better. If you're talking Power 4 leagues, you can't. I mean, as much fun as it would be to have a fight for the top 4 spots and what that could create in terms of like an English football model, and I think fans would enjoy that element of it. I just don't think from a level of competitive fairness that it works, and I don't understand why more people can't see that. If you want to go to a 20-team playoff and everybody gets 4, then we can talk. But I don't. You can't have 4-4-2-2. Am I right on this, or what am I missing?
I'm kind of I'm clearly among media members among the minority that I actually kind of like the plan, and part of that is the way that expansion has changed it. And when you look at the teams that have gone into the Big Ten and SEC, and I took a look at like the 11 years since they instituted the playoff and how many teams from the current makeup of these teams would be in it. 54 Big Ten teams, 51 SEC, and then only 27 of each of the ACC and Big 12. And in fact, in the current Big 12, they've played a total of 2 playoff games, and that was, counting or before last year, and then the 4-team model, and that was TCU twice. And so I understand why the Big Ten and to some extent the SEC is saying, our leagues are much bigger. We're full of better teams from 1 to whatever. I mean, in the Big Ten this year, I think you can look at 1 to 11 and say they all have a reasonable chance of competing for the playoff. And yet, when you start to stack it up, and this is where Tony Petitti and the Big Ten has an issue, is that when you start to get into this perception race and this discussion race towards the end of the season, and the SEC always wins it. But what happens if, and I'll just use this as an example, Iowa goes to Iowa State and wins, but their schedule includes 4 teams that won 11 games last year, and they go 9-3, where maybe Iowa State goes to the Big 12 championship again and loses, and they're 11-2. And the committee says, well, they won 11 games. They're a better team, but Iowa's like, look, we beat them head to head. We're 9-3. And we should have, we had a much more difficult path to there. And so I get the need or the discussion for auto bids, because sometimes you get lower especially in a lower tier, you're going to have those issues. But I also think that the Big Ten has handled this narrative about as poorly as possible, that when it started getting kind of discussed back in May at SEC meetings, and they really, in the 80s, and the coaches really were talking against it, that would have been a perfect time for Tony Petitti and maybe some other Big Ten people to come out and say, this is why we like it, and this is why we think it works. And instead, they've allowed the rest of the country to seize the narrative, and it makes the Big Ten look like a bunch of ogres, that they don't want competitiveness. And I think that's not really the way it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of my problem with it is just what is now, or what has been in a 4-team playoff might not be what is in a 12 or 16-team playoff in terms of the strength of how many teams are from the ACC and Big 12. And there's no question right now the Big Ten and SEC are stronger leagues, or have been for the most part. But you just can't predict the future, and to predetermine it, I don't know. I understand, like, even in you go over to European soccer, there are leagues that get 3 teams in the Champions League and teams that get 4 in, and there are things that are in place where what you do the year before then matters to how many places you get the next year, right? And so maybe there could be something like that to make it more current. I do love the idea of, I do think if you had a true top 4, and you inside your league that really, really mattered, that you would the race to be in those places beyond the champion would be really fun deep into the season. And so I understand that, and I think some of it comes down to just not being able to trust the committee too, and that's because most of the time you think the Big Ten's going to have 4 in, or at least when they deserve to have 4 in. Where do you think this ultimately lands now that there's been the pushback there is? I mean, it seems like for the short term there's a stalemate, and the Big Ten has stood firm enough that we're going to stick with 12 and stick with what we have. Where do you think this ultimately lands?
Yeah, I mean, I think first to your point about the Big Ten getting burned in the past, and I think that's true in the last decade. I think reasonable people can make a case that 2013 Michigan State deserved to be in over Auburn. for the national title game against Florida State. I think, when you look at 2017 and 18, and that's kind of the impetus of this whole thing, that Ohio State got left out by playing 9 league games because they went on the road at West Division teams and lost. Had they only played 8 league games, they might not have played those West Division teams, and then they would have been undefeated in the Big Ten and qualified anyway. And so I think that's why they're kind of burned. But the one interesting part about this is that the Big Ten and SEC are the ones that actually have they control the outcome of what the next iteration of the playoff is going to be. So it's between those two. Now, granted, they're not going to just do it unilaterally and say, we don't care what you guys think. But, I mean, they do care. But they have the focus and the charge to do it. I think it's going to be a combination of both. And here's where I think the Big Ten can get what it wants and not lose face and allow everybody else to kind of get what they want, is if they drop it from 4 to 3, but they still get their play-in games, which is 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, and then the championship, and say the winners automatically qualify. And then the losers of those 3 games enter the at-large pool. They're going to get 4 because the runner-up in the Big Ten is going to get in no matter what. So I think that's something that they can kind of cut it down and say, look, and there may be a year where a team that's 7-2 accidentally qualifies for that championship game and gets blown out and maybe falls out. But that's 1 out of 10. But I think the Big Ten would get the teams it wants through that system and still give at least the perception that, hey, there's still 5 at-large spots, and we think that we deserve at least 3. I think that's probably something where it'll end up.
But doesn't that seem pretty sneaky, not just automatically including the second-place team if you're having a play-in for the 3rd and 4th? I mean, to me, it seems like number 2 has to be in, and if you want to do a play-in beneath that, it would. I mean, it seems like people would be able to see through that, right? I mean, maybe not. Maybe they get what they want. I mean, there's been all sorts of asinine systems in college football over the years, so I'm not saying it. It just seems to me if you're 2, I mean, you're right that in that system they're going to get in, but that people would. Yeah, that's a very good point. It's a workaround. I don't know that I love it.
Yeah. Well, let's say, and this is something that totally can happen in any of these leagues now that they're so big, that team number 1 is 9-0, goes to the end, and then teams 2, 3, and 4 are all tied at 7-2.
Right.
And say that could have, let's say that reasonably would have happened last year with Indiana. And Indiana would have been 7-2, even though they were 8-1. But there was a 3-way tie, and then they go and get waxed by Oregon, 45-14 or something like that. They conceivably could have fallen out of that allotment, but by and large, yeah, I mean they're going to do it. The main thing is, I think even more than the actual playoff number of guarantees is that Tony Petitti wants the 3 games to lead into that. And part of that is a lot of revenue. I mean, you're getting 2 high-powered games the first weekend of December, and that's gonna matter a lot. And then one of the points he's made to me previously is it related to Indiana. Now, I think Indiana played a much better schedule than people gave him credit for, but who would have known who would have won between Illinois and Indiana last year? Illinois lost at Penn State, got smoked by Oregon, and then lost to Minnesota, who won 8 games. They're not a bad team. Whereas Indiana, played some teams that nobody thought were going to be down in Michigan and Washington, lost only to Ohio State. But, is that 8-1 season better than a 6-3 year? We just don't know. And I think that's kind of what, is the hope is here, that you get, hey, maybe that 6-3 team is actually really good. They just played a really murderous schedule. I mean, like take Iowa, for instance, this year. They've got to play Indiana, Oregon, Penn State, and Iowa State. All 4 teams won at least 11 games last year, plus games like at USC and Nebraska and Michigan State at home and some others. And so there's an opportunity there for them to be a really good 6-3 that maybe finishes 5th or 6th in the conference, but they get in and boom, they're up there. Or, Ohio State was the 4th team in the Big Ten last year. So I think that's why they're kind of wanting to do this. Now, they do have to convince the SEC that it's the right path. And if they do it in a way that's, even if it is a kind of a cheap way to get your 4 teams in by calling it 3, I think that's probably something that they'll do, and because I don't think they don't want 5 plus 11 unless the SEC goes to 9 games.
I would just love to see us get to the point. I don't think we're going to get there, where there's just a uniform understanding that you got to play 5 true road games and you got to play 10. And you talked about in one of your pieces the number of teams in both leagues that are playing 10 Power 4 opponents. Like that, just to be eligible for the playoff, you play 10 Power 4 opponents. The intent in scheduling matters to some degree, and then from there are going to be unbalanced schedules. But I think everybody would at least not feel quite like you wouldn't get the response you're getting from Indiana right now. Because part of my issue with what's happening with, like, I mean, I understand from a logical point, Kirk Cignetti's looking at it like, well, this worked last year. This was a better path for the program. But the point of college football isn't to find the cheapest way into the play. Over years, it's been, you're supposed to create great out-of-conference games, and matchups and experiences for fans. And there's nothing better than a, September, late afternoon game in, Iowa State, when Michigan State hosted Oregon in 2015. You don't want these games to go away that can have meaning, and you want to encourage them. And I think we have to get to a system that encourages them where they have meaning. Maybe it comes down to the inability to trust the selection committee. Like you'd think logical people could point out, and maybe it takes teams that dodge certain schedules really being punished at some point. I don't know how we get to a point where everybody sort of says this works for us.
Yeah, you're right, and I think part of it is the Big Ten doesn't trust the SEC at all, and they don't. And remember 10 years ago when Jim Delaney unveiled this plan where we're going to play 9 league games, championship game 1, major out-of-conference opponent, and no FCS teams. Well, that backfired because of those Ohio State years where they didn't make the playoff. It backfired even in that New Year's Six year where Florida played 2 FCS teams, didn't play anybody out of conference with a winning record, yet they got into a major bowl over Penn State, who played Pitt and played like an 11-2 App State team. And so that's where the roots of the Big Ten's mistrust of this system goes forward. And again, when you look at the Big Ten playing 9 league games versus the SEC playing 8. The SEC has that layup weekend in the middle part of November. Well, that's when a lot of upsets happen in these major conferences. When you got a really good team, they're going on the road, they're playing at a decent team sometimes that maybe just puts it all together. Maybe the good team's having a bad day. Well, in the SEC, before their big rivalry games, a lot of times you see them play in an FCS opponent. It's like, oh, we can rest these guys. And then at the end of the year, you look at and they're not really taking into account that they played Mercer or Furman or something like that. And instead they're saying, well, they're 10-2 and the Big Ten team is 10-2 as well, but they looked better in their big games. And that's what they want to kind of remove. And I think that's why I understand the point of wanting guaranteed games. And to your point, definitely about non-conference is if it goes 5 plus 11 and the SEC doesn't change, then in the Big Ten, it's going to go to a race to the bottom. It's going to be what Penn State and Indiana are doing right now, which is what advantage do we have in playing these non-conference games when our conference schedule is so difficult? It doesn't benefit us, and if we lose, it's going to make us look way worse. So we might as well not even take that risk. And college football shouldn't be about that, as you said. I mean, I'd much rather watch Michigan State play Notre Dame or Kentucky or any other power conference team as opposed to a directional school or multiple times. And I think, unfortunately, unless the guarantees kind of come in where that you could play that game and it's not going to affect you in your playoff opportunities, it will on positioning and seeding. But I think unless that happens, I expect most teams, I think USC will end up dropping Notre Dame. And I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years if Iowa dropped Iowa State because of the same situation.
Yeah. Now that would be a shame because not a lot of stuff is being done right now with the fans in mind. And I think you I'm not saying college football is going to – I mean, fans ultimately want their team in the playoff, let's be honest, but as more than anything. But people also want those games. And so, all right, let's talk about this year's Big Ten. It's every year when you look at it now with 18 teams, it's just a lot. It's a lot to figure out. There are a lot of unknowns. Like I look at Michigan State's schedule, and there are teams, Minnesota, Nebraska, Michigan playing a freshman quarterback, USC, Indiana. They're like five, a number of teams you just don't know what they're going to be. So people talk about, well, what's Michigan State's going to be? Will it be 5 wins, 6 wins? I don't know what those other teams are going to be. And I think there's a lot of that in the Big Ten. But you did a nice job of sort of breaking down the top of the Big Ten and the middle and teams that have, a chance. You started with the reluctant favorite, Penn State. And I think everybody feels this way. Like it's so hard to picture Penn State doing what everybody thinks they should do because they just haven't. They haven't been that team in a league where they've got to get through other powers. Do you think this is finally Penn State's year? And what's your level of trust that they belong there above Ohio State or Oregon per se?
I have them there, but I'm kind of reluctant. I think, you look at everything points into this is their year. They are a big, powerful program. They return everybody. They return a really good quarterback and a great defense, and then they picked up some nice pieces in the portal. So everything points into that direction. And really, even their schedule for the most part isn't so bad. But I'm timid because they've had these opportunities. They haven't beat Ohio State since 2016. James Franklin's 1-15 against top 5 teams. Even when you look at Drew Aller in last year and in the 3 games they lost, he had an opportunity to tie or win the game in the final minutes, and either through interceptions or an incompletion on 4th and goal. And so you got to kind of break that barrier. And I think they can do it, but do I truly believe it like an Ohio State or even a Michigan a few years ago? No, I don't have that kind of faith. But I do think that they're the best team on paper coming in. And really, if there wasn't so much change with some of the other teams, Oregon and Ohio State in particular, I probably wouldn't have picked them just because of that history. It's like you got to prove it, and they haven't proved it yet. Although I do think they do have a very good team, and maybe a team that is capable of winning the national title.
If there is a Big Ten team, and you mentioned the depth, Michigan and USC, Iowa and Nebraska, Illinois, a lot of people are really high on. Indiana, we'll see what they are in this sort of year after the great year out of nowhere. Washington wasn't bad a couple years ago. It'll be interesting to see what they are. Minnesota, you talk about their high expectations. If there is a team or two that you think are I don't want to say being slept on because people know these teams can be good, but might be in that next tier, might be in playoff consideration, who would they be?
I would probably start with like the team that I think has got the best chance to really bounce in a really high way is Washington. I really like Washington. I think Damon Williams is a dynamic young quarterback. He showed it in a bowl game, but he's got to flash that all year. Jonah Coleman's a terrific running back, and Denzel Boston. They did a nice job in the portal. Their schedule sets up for them in decent fashion, where they have a couple of really big challenging games, but they're kind of wrapped around games that are manageable. And in those games, all 3 of them are at home against big teams. Ohio State early, Illinois mid part of the year, and Oregon late. So I think Washington has a chance to really bounce into that. I like Iowa for a lot of reasons. I think they have one of the best running games in the country, even though they lost Caleb Johnson, but their offensive line is a lot of it's intact. And I think getting Mark Gronowski from South Dakota State is something that's really kind of gone under the radar. But this guy was the FCS Player of the Year 2 years ago. He's led South Dakota State to 49 wins, 2 national titles. Would have been in the draft last year, but he had a slightly torn labrum that he took care of, and he's perfectly fine now. And as we've seen over the years, if Iowa just had that quarterback, that they might be a much better program. And I think he's maybe the best one that they've had in a decade for sure. And so I like them. But, Illinois is just kind of enigmatic to me because every time that they've had a good year, they've bounced with a terrible year. And last year they were 5-1 in one possession games. And for programs like Illinois and those teams, they tend to kind of revert back or the breaks go against them. And I've seen that happen to really good teams time after time. Iowa State being the most recent, where they won the Fiesta Bowl and had Brock Purdy and Breece Hall, and then the next year they go 7-6. And so it just bad things happen. I'm not saying that this year they won't, exceed that, but Indiana is really, I'm fascinated with them because I think they really improved in the portal. And even though I thought Curtis Work was a terrific quarterback, I think Fernando Mendoza is better. And Kirk Cignetti has kind of proven himself as a really good coach. And, not only at James Madison, but now at Indiana. They've got that 3-game stretch early in the season: Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon, the final 2 on the road. And that could be really challenging for them. So, I guess I look at that whole list and I think they all have opportunities. They all have flaws, but, and ultimately, I know in Iowa's case that they've proven year after year to be pretty good. And I think that they can go from good to very good. And I think Washington has the firepower to really put them in that conversation.
Well, Scott, this makes me just want to say take the under on Michigan State when I hear all this stuff. So but fortunately for MSU, they don't play all of these teams, and there are just some of them, and we'll see where that lands. I hope to see you in a press box before the Michigan State-Iowa game, or at least I hope you're there when I'm there, and really enjoyed chatting with you, man. Thanks for taking some time.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Love talking to you, and hope to see you this fall.
That is the great Scott Dochterman from The Athletic. Love reading his work and love the way he was a guy when he was at the Cedar Rapids paper, loved writing about Big Ten issues, loved writing about bigger picture stuff. And so it really fit when he's been one of those guys that's thrived with The Athletic as they've taken more of a national approach to things. It's a big, scary league with a lot of teams with a lot of potential. I think Michigan State's going to be okay. But, there's an argument that there are, half the league is more seasoned and in a better place than them. They're going to have to be really good at quarterback, and they're going to have to have good playmakers. I don't know. Do you leave that conversation with any thoughts, Jason?
I do. You guys covered a lot, but how much money I'm going to lose on Penn State and James Franklin this year. I forget that top 5 record that he has. Was it 1-15?
Yeah.
The doc just said, yeah. I forget about that every once in a while, and in the preseason it gets brought up again. I go, oh, right.
My trust in Drew Aller is not a ton. Like, I don't trust Drew Aller anymore.
I trust Aller. I don't trust Franklin. I think Franklin gets in those situations and he pukes on his dick. I don't know if it's Drew Aller. I trust him, I think, more.
I don't know that I trust Drew.
Is Franklin a big game coach? I mean,
well, no, that's a huge question.
That's what I mean. Like,
I don't trust Drew Aller any more than I trust Aidan Chiles, and Aidan Chiles had a rough year last year, right? Like, I think if you would put Aidan Chiles in now, I think Aidan Chiles was going to struggle in certain ways as a sophomore either way, but I think if you put him in an ideal situation, right, with elite talent around him, he would have looked like a very different quarterback last year when he wasn't running for his life and all that good stuff. And so that you can look at that two ways. I think for a place like Michigan State, that's the hope that they have a real difference maker at that position. They have guys at receiver who are like that, and that's going to allow them to be in games that they might allow them to be ahead of schedule and win some one-possession games and win some shootouts, and maybe they're that sort of team. And Illinois, I've been really high on, and now he made me feel less high on Illinois. I'm certainly
you're a big Brett Bielema guy.
I am a bit, just because he looks like what I'm going to look like in 10 years. So I hope not. There's that. Let's take a really quick break. When we come back, we'll talk some games and some gambling with the great Harry
Gagnon. Chomping at the bit.
Yeah,
can't wait.
All right.
Yeah. Sportsbook is the site to play from your phone, tablet, or laptop. Get in on all the football action with pre- and in-game wagering. There's showdowns every week in football that you can't miss. Plus, the college and pro hoops are red hot, and the pucks are cool. Get your first casino deposit and sports wager matched up to $500 each. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask & Company Kitchen Bar or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. 2 amazing places with one awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask & Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. Ever wonder how comfortable you can be and how good you can look? Put on a Muskox flannel and find out. Muskox has new arrivals for this fall, including the Caper Green Grand Flannel, which even makes couch look good. Muskox is a Detroit-based flannel company that creates soft and durable flannels made to last a lifetime. They become a great partner with Couch in the Rube, not just because they make us look good and feel good, but because they're good people too, and a socially conscious company. For every $100 purchase, $10 is donated to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation. Muskox flannels are designed with 100% cotton that is ethically sourced and double brushed for softness. Feel the quality and comfort of a Muskox flannel by ordering at gomuskox.com, where Couch in the Rube listeners can enjoy $15 off their flannel purchase with the promo code HOFF.
Find Couch in the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Very pleased now to have our good friend, Harry Gagnon from Against All Odds with Cousin Sal and BetOnline.com. Here in Couch in the Rube, our Wednesday show presented by our friends at Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask and Company Kitchen and Bar. Harry, how you doing, brother?
Hey, what's up, guys? How's everything?
Doing all right. Doing okay. How early in your process of over-unders, season over-unders, are you right now? Because I find my best years are when I really do some research and then fire all at once. My worst years are when I get bored and just start doing them bit by bit and then realize I have 37 of them before kickoff and I need everybody to make the playoffs. Where are you in your process?
Well, free agency being over and everyone reporting now, and you still hold off a little bit because of possible injuries that could happen. But you still have I think at this point you have a pretty good feel about what you think teams are going to be. There's still some question marks on some teams, some divisions. Like, again, for the second straight year, I think the NFC North is stacked. It could go any which way. I mean, you could go. You could think the Bears are going to be first. You could think and then they end up last. Same thing could go for Minnesota. Don't know what we're going to get out of McCarthy. We think we know, but we're not sure. Love didn't have a great season last year overall for what people expect from him. So again, and now with Detroit having both coordinators moving on, that makes things interesting too. So there's some definite question marks that you have to still investigate. But I think for the most part, I got a pretty good feel at this point of what I think teams are going to do.
Iguna Yaba Gita Jared Goff.
I don't know about you guys.
That never gets old, guys.
It never does.
No, it's fantastic. It's yeah.
I have it on my phone. I play it every once in a while. It's during the season.
It's a piece of joy in my life every time I'm here. I am fully in on the Lions over 10.5. I just I understand it's a tough schedule, whatever, but this is a 15-win team a year ago, despite all the injuries. I understand that the regular season might not be as important to them after what happened in the playoffs. Man, getting to 11 seems just
schedule or not, they should get to 11. Yes.
Right. Like it's like the Texans above 9.5. I know they've got a few issues here and there, but you look at their division, that's like you telling me that team is not getting to 10 wins too?
And the Bears are getting a lot of hype because of Ben Johnson now. So
those are the Texans and Lions. I think I'm all in on the possibility. Texans. Well, not as a team overall, but getting to 10 wins. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. I just really like the idea that they get to 10.
Because you would think with the Lions, unless there's like a catastrophic injury again, but even last year, look at what happened with Hutchinson last year, and they still won 15 games. It would have to take a Jared Goff kind of injury, like we just mentioned, for them to not get to that point, I think. All
right, well, you have some stuff right now, Harry, and Jason does as well. You like betting the golf this week. You are a fan of Lucas Glover. Explain yourself, sir.
Yeah, I am. You can get him, like, if you want to bet him to win, 35-1, top 10 plus 340, top 20. I really like this bet at plus 155. He's a Southern guy. He's from South Carolina, the tournament's in North Carolina. He's got 2 top 10s in his last 3 events. He won this in 2023. And his iron play lately has been very good, too. And actually, it's been great all season. From 125 to 150 yards, guys, He's first in the PGA. I think that's going to help here. The field is decent this week. It's not great. So Lucas Glover, again, like I said, top 20 is my best play here out of the three at plus 155.
Nice. I like that.
So I think one of the things that's key with golf, Jason and Harry, is this time of year. It's like tennis. Like I've fallen in love. I'm betting the Toronto Masters series. The women are in Montreal. The men in Toronto last week. It's in D.C. There's games in matches in Croatia other weeks and other things. These tournaments between the majors or after the majors, where it's about motivation, who shows up, who really wants to be there. And I think that's part of figuring it out. Now, there's obviously just the randomness of golf, too. But,
it's the last regular season event for the PGA. They're going to get into the FedEx Cup. So a lot of guys are trying to get into that top 70.
Okay. So who do you like this week, Jason?
Glad you asked, Graham. I got 2 top 40 parlays, boys, and an overall winner. Let's go with the first 2-leg, 2-player parlay here. Top 40 finish. Jackson Koiven, the world's #1 amateur golfer from Auburn. Unbelievable player. Young. I wish I was that good. Be so fun. Gaining strokes with his driver and gaining over a stroke per round on the greens. 2 top 15s in his last 3 starts. I'm going to couple him with Doug Gim, who ranks 18th in shots gained. Approach, that is, with almost a stroke gain in his last 5 events. He's clean off the tee and accurate from 100 to 175 yards. He would have to win this thing to get into the FedEx, which is a stretch, but I think he can snag a top 40. And I'm going to give you the winner in between of these top 40 parlays. And it's my guy, Harry Hall. I cannot deny Harry Hall. I had him as an overall winner a couple tournaments ago, and that putter is just way too good. 40-1. You could also bet him in a top 20. I think you can get plus 300 around there, plus 200, something like that. But winners at Sedgefield in the last decade, all ranked in the top 20 in shots gained approach. Hall ranks 19th in shots gained approach. Analyzes shots that are not tee shots. That's the whole thing with the shots gained approach. Par 4s and 5s and all shots par 3s, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I put that in by accident. Sorry, I forgot I put that explanation in there. The last top 40, it's a 3-leg one, but it's a desperation. Guys that are desperate, like I just mentioned, to get into that FedEx Cup. I usually don't do top 3 players to get into the top 40, but here we go. I like these 3 selections. And this, by the way, the first top 40, it with Koivan and Doug Gim, it pays plus 373. This top 40, it's going to pay out plus 651, and I got Christian Biesenhout. Tough name to pronounce. But he tied T22 last year and has made the cut every time he's played there. He needs solo 36 or better to make the FedEx playoff, and Graham likes that pick. Next pick, I know Graham likes this guy, Ricky Fowler.
Oh, yeah.
5 top 20s in the last 10 starts and needs top 12 to clinch a playoff spot. Chris Kirk, finally, to wrap up this top 40 playoff, plus 651. Biesenhout, Fowler, and finally, Chris Kirk. 3 top 15s in his last 5 starts, and he doesn't have the greatest track record at this course, but his putting is trending and needs a top 40 finish to get into the FedEx. Played well at the Rocket Classic, which I was at, by the way. I like to mention I was at that Rocket Classic. So 2 top 40, boys, and an overall winner, Harry Hall.
I'll tell you, that's going to be a tough one, that last parlay. And Biesenhout, I've had him a couple times. Just it seems like when I take him, guys, he doesn't do great. He doesn't do terrible, but he never does great. And I always seem to kind of end up losing with him. But your explanation, I know you've been on Hall, and great call past couple times. You've taken him, Jay. But the first parlay, I'm definitely into that. And the Doug Gim, give me some of that Gim. I like that. I like that reasoning.
It is a top 40. We all have those golfers that have burned us before, so I can understand the Biesenhout hate. But it just need him to get a top 40. Make that cut, Christian, and get us a nice top 40. We can cash this bad boy. Because I don't usually, boys, I don't like doing the 3-leg top 40s, but those 3 guys in an environment like this where these guys are trying to grind to get into that FedEx Cup, I had to do it.
All right, Harry, you have some stuff you like tonight in baseball, too. Ohtani is back on the mound.
Oh, that's right.
For the Dodgers against the Reds. What do you see there?
Yeah, he had a bad night last night at the plate. 0 for 5 with 4 Ks, but he is on the mound tonight. His over-under is sitting 4.5. strikeouts. I'm going under, guys. Under 4.5 Ks at -130. 6 starts this season. He hasn't gone more than 3 innings in any of them. He's gone under 4.5 in all 6, and he's gone under 4.5 strikeouts in 8 of his last 9 starts. Give me Ohtani under 4.5 strikeouts tonight. And in the Rangers-Angels games, guys, I got the under 8 at -105. Nate Eovaldi on the mound for the Rangers. He's been tremendous all season. ERA 1.50. His whip is under 1. And in July, in the month of July, guys, his ERA is an outstanding 0.38. He beat the Angels July 8th, went 6 innings, gave up 0 earned runs, and Soriano is on the mound for the Angels. 4 of his last 5 starts, 2 earned runs or less. Give me Rangers Angels under 8.
You're a beautiful man. Beautiful man. I will be on Club America tonight and their Leagues Cup game. I love this Leagues Cup. This is what MLS should do all the time. There are games every single night, all the time. I don't like that some MLS teams are like just off for a couple weeks, essentially. I think that's total shit. But I did love that Liga MX was so good last. I was on Pachuca last night. I've had a pretty good run because it's just better than MLS, and people are slow to realize it. But I do think there's value on Club America, and Club America, by the way, against Salt Lake, -130. Look, that's a place where there's not a huge Mexican crowd. I know it's at altitude. Still like Club America. Probably also like the over in Pumas Orlando City. It's just at 2.5 at -120. This tournament games go over. I mean, these are 2 teams that go over. I like the over 2.5 there, and that's if you get in before tonight and you're listening. Jason, you still awake?
What's that?
Okay. Yeah,
I just love that you're mad at MLS teams for taking 2 weeks off, as we just took 2 weeks off in July for the show.
Yeah.
Who was that first team that you liked?
Club America.
Well, you said there was a different name. It was who they? What was the?
Oh,
what
Puma.
Was the team?
You mean the Pumas Orlando
the team before
game?
that.
Boring
The
Americana.
team before that.
Oh, Pachua from last night.
Pachua, yeah.
Pachua.
I thought you were talking about what the latest brand of weed soda Jason was. That's what I thought.
Oh, well played. Yeah. This is how I learned Spanish. I watched TUDN and Mexican soccer all night. That's my way in. Who needs high school?
Telemundo.
It's funny. Put on Telemundo and you watch the soccer because sometimes that's all we can bet, Graham. And even though I don't even understand Spanish, I have the volume on.
Oh, same here. It's funny how I prefer. Like sometimes if something's boring enough at an event, I'll put a podcast on and watch the event. But like if I'm on the treadmill and I got Mexican soccer on, because I want the emotion, I want the tone, I want what the announcers are saying. I may not understand all of it, but I get it. We're on the same wavelength. Right. I'm with them. And that stuff's really important. Harry, you are a beautiful man. We will talk to you really soon, man.
Thanks, man.
Sounds great, guys. And by the way, real quick, WNBA tonight. Liberty Lynx. Give me the over 166. Both teams are 1-2 in scoring in the league this year. Liberty, 4 of the last 5 games, they scored 89 points or more. And their defense lately has been shoddy. They've given up 92 and 101 in their last 2 games. And the Lynx, best team in the league, they've scored 86 more in 4 of the last 5. Liberty Lynx tonight, over 166.
Harry, do you have the sound on for the WNBA game too, or just to get the sound, the environment?
Well, I mean, normally I kind of wouldn't, but since what in the last couple of days we've seen we've seen a wig fly off a woman. We've seen I don't know if I can say this, but
you can say dildo.
Dildo on the court.
Oh, you can say that.
Yeah, you can say that.
So I mean, it's very interesting to see what the announcers can come up with when crazy stuff like that is happening.
I like that you asked if you could say it and then just said it.
Yeah.
No.
That was my favorite part. Can I say clean dildo? How do you know it was clean?
Clean. I said green.
Oh,
I said green.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said it was clean.
It's going to be a heck.
Let's hope it was clean.
It's going to be a heck of a night. Heck of a night. Harry, you're a beautiful man. We'll talk soon.
See you, man.
The great Harry Gagnon. Man, I love that guy.
Yeah.
I really do. Before
green dildo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I love when I leave a conversation with Harry and I've got like 5 or 6 things to bet on that night, and it's kind of funny. Sprinkle a little here and there, and all of a sudden you're like fired up about the Angels Rangers under, and you're previously didn't even know that game was happening. Yeah. Before we go, and we'll be back Friday with your Groovy Donut Twitter questions. And Groovy Donuts again open 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Thursday through Sunday. Power restored. I'm telling you right now, the Groovy Donuts, if you want to help them out because they were closed, great, but they'll help you out. They'll bring joy to your life, and it's just worth doing. If you're nearby or want to make that trip, or you're going to be in any gathering or any place where you may want people to like you, bring Groovy Donuts. The other piece of news that I wanted to get to before we go is Central Michigan, and this is a couple days old at this point, though. Central Michigan was sort of noticed by the NCAA, hit with a notice of allegations about Connor Stalions and him being on the sideline. And this is the story that everybody's sort of waiting for. And it's amazing that it takes this long. It's just unbelievable that you can have something like the O.J. Simpson trial, as I mentioned the other day, go more quickly than, even as long as presidential campaigns are, which are like a year and a half at this point. These things are shorter from the beginning of primary campaigning to inauguration than it's taken to get to the point of a notice of allegations from the NCAA to Central Michigan. I think some of that had to do with the Michigan case needing to be resolved or adjudicated first. And the good news about this is CMU is going to have to respond, right? And it's going to take a while still. But now CMU cannot hide behind the idea that an investigation's ongoing, and so they can't respond when they've said they've looked forward to responding. I want to hear the response. So we'll give them their due, their chance to do it. I'm very curious to hear from Amy Folin. I know a lot of people are upset, Michigan State fans. It is one thing I will definitely ask Jay Batt about when I first talked to him about the CMU football series and whether that's still on and what he thinks about all this stuff. I guarantee you at some point in his email box or from a donor or from a fan he has run into,
Pound the bushes.
He has been brought up to speed. Somebody was probably like, hey, what are you going to do about the CMU series? He's going, what? What about the CMU series? Why would that be a thing?
Is it David Jackson on the phone again? Yeah. Is that the same guy? Yeah. He's called here like 94 times.
But when you're new, you learn about these things fast, as Jonathan Smith has found out last year.
Who is this Matt C. that keeps calling the office? I can't. It's unbelievable. He keeps yelling about CMU.
What's interesting about this whole thing is I've always thought, now, Michigan plays a role in this because Connor Stalions was on Michigan's staff at the time, right? You can't say Michigan has no role in this. But I've always thought, and wrote about this in the initial report I did on this story when nobody else was really reporting on it much yet. There were a couple people out there, I shouldn't say that. But that this was more about a friend at CMU who had been on the Michigan staff, an offensive coordinator who's no longer there, wanting help for his first day as a play caller and reaching out to a friend. And he was there to help CMU as much as he was to advance Scout Michigan State. I've always believed that. Doesn't mean it's any more right or wrong. I mean, CMU still has to be held to account. He was still a Michigan coach. But I believe the motives for that were less about scouting ahead and more about helping CMU on that given day. Or at least, I shouldn't say more about it. I should say they were at least partially about helping CMU on that day. And CMU, I think their head coach knew it. Of course, he's no longer there. But the AD is there. And she at some point is going to have to actually answer to this. And I'm curious what she says. It's going to take time. All this shit takes way too much time. But finally, there is direction, and we will get to a resolution, and there should be a response. And she won't be able to hide behind that anymore if we ask for a response if she doesn't give an adequate response. So we'll see where this all goes. Wanted to get into that a little bit before the end of the show. We'll be back Friday.
Yeah.
Dig into your Groovy Donut Twitter questions and get to the one from David Jackson that I forgot last week. It'll be there, David. Don't worry. Appreciate all you guys. Appreciate everybody listening. Thanks to Scott Dochterman for the conversation. Always enjoy chatting with him. Thanks to Harry. Thanks to our friends at Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask & Company Kitchen and Bar, an outstanding place for any occasion, for a night out, for a drink. You'll love the menu. You'll love the food. We appreciate them being with us all this time for most of our more than 1,000 episodes. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch in the Roof.